Hey, I'm here today with Kerry Hinds. Hi, Kerry.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to have this talk with you. And you and I connected because we have a mutual client who we both got to support on her fertility path. And what a thrill, right? To
Amazing.
be in
I
this
know.
space.
I listened to her podcast. So I was like, oh, I need to reach out to you
Oh my
because, as we were talking about before, we have such similar views on how to approach fertility. So it's just going to be a
Yes.
cool conversation. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited to highlight you. You're a yoga instructor. You've been teaching since you said 2005, but more in the fertility space since 2016.
Yes. Yep.
And what I love about you is you two have a personal yoga or personal fertility story that we're going to dive into because you have that you can relate. You understand what it's like to go through this emotional ride firsthand.
Absolutely.
As do I. We both get it.
Yes, we get it. And I think that is so when we're working with others, I think it is very, very important to have that.
Mm-hmm. And you're the teacher behind Fertile Body Yoga. And tell us a little bit about your background and where you're based and all the good things.
Okay, so Fertile Body Yoga is a online virtual yoga studio. It's dedicated to supporting those who are going through their fertility journey. So whether it's, I'm trying at home and things aren't going as quickly as I thought, and I'm not getting pregnant as quickly as I thought, to, eighth round of IVF, I'm like, everybody's just trying, what else can I do? What else can
Yeah.
I do? So there's a huge range of people that I work with.
Mhm.
Also work quite closely with those going through pregnancy loss or after loss, just to help regulate cycles and so on. So
Mhm.
the whole sort of gamut. And I do also prenatal and postnatal as well. But mostly I focus on the fertility part of it
Mhm.
because I think that's where the gap is
Yeah.
in support. Um, so that's the studio. So I have some live stream series. I have some on-demand things that people can do anytime,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
which is a nice mix. And yeah, where do I live in Washington State,
Yes.
in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere, and I love it. I started all the fertility yoga and working with folks in this area in Boston. So I
Yeah.
still work a lot on Boston time because a lot of my referral network comes from Boston. So
Oh, that's cool. That's
I
cool. Yeah.
do.
Coast to coast. You're bi-coastal.
I'm getting more West Coasters. So sometimes there's an issue with timing for live streaming, but trying
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, yeah. I mean, I just love that we connect, like you said, integrating the mind, the body, the spirit. It's like all of it, our health, our emotions, energy, lifestyle, like all of it impacts our reproductive health.
Hmm.
And this is why I think you and I wanted to have this talk with you because we're very like-minded in this, in this way. And how yoga, I think there's so many women, I get questions about it a lot, about yoga, different safe postures, which we will dive into on how it really can support us on our
Yeah.
reproductive paths. Um, but take us back, like, I'd love for you to share a bit of your own fertility story. So that you have experienced IUI, you've experienced IVF, and throw another country in the mix, like living in Germany,
Yeah.
which you can talk about. Will you just give a little highlight of, I think you were trying for, what was it? How many years? Three?
We
It was
were
a fertility story or treatment of 3 years?
Well, the treatment part, like when we
Yeah.
actively started trying, tried for about 6 months. We were in that 35-ish age,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I knew, okay, we should go in, but we had just moved to Germany. So
Wow.
my husband had a great opportunity to go finish his PhD at a really swanky science place. So we're like,
Mhm.
okay, let's move to Germany. And then when we're there, I'll have babies. It'll be so easy because the social system, like there's so
Mhm.
much support for it's amazing. New moms,
Yeah.
pregnancy, the whole thing.
Amazing. Wow.
So we're like, this is great. It'll be perfect. Right. And then of course, things never go as planned. So
Mhm.
having
Rule number one, just let your plan go out the window.
exactly. It's like, how are you going to be pregnant? by March 20, blah, blah, blah. Like
Yeah.
it just life, universe throws things differently than what we want to happen. So we went to see, luckily we lived in a fairly small town, but it was a university town. It was very sciencey and so on. So they had actually a fertility clinic, one of the best ones in Germany, happened to be right in our little town of Jena in Germany.
Nice.
So started there, but I spoke no German. So, and this wasn't part of old Eastern Germany. So they, most people who were working, like a little bit older, who were working in the offices, the doctors, like all the people, driver's license people, anybody that worked in a building, really didn't speak English. They spoke Russian, but not English. So I recruited a new friend who I hardly even didn't know.
Yeah.
And she translated for me, basically.
Wow.
Like our first time going in. The doctor didn't speak very much English. So it was very, oh my gosh. It, like when I look back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, because there were so many questions I had that I had no answers to. And I just kind of did it. Like, okay, let's do it.
It was IUI that they advised you to first, right? IUI?
Yes. So we did all the testing and it came back like mine was, yeah, not great. My husband's wasn't great either.
Okay.
So it's sort of a dual factor situation. I was 36 at the time, like
Advanced maternal age, right? That's
geriatric. Geriatric, yes.
Gosh.
So I know it's so hard, the labels they give us. So yeah, we kind of dove in, we did IUI. Our first IUI was successful and we did become pregnant. And then at 10 weeks, we lost that pregnancy. And that, I think that was the most traumatic, dealing with that in a different language.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine.
Because I didn't understand exactly what was going on. And everybody's kind of rushing around and speaking German, like, what's going on? Because I always thought like getting pregnant is the hard part, right? Like we don't go down like, oh, but once we get pregnant, that's it. Woohoo. But yes. But once
each milestone is so important, right? So that 10-week, you said you didn't hear the heartbeat.
No heartbeat. And we had been in there 2 weeks before and, heartbeat, everything looked good. So I was like, woohoo. And then we went in for a D&C the next day. Like it was really just like boom, 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 boom. And I was just sort of being rushed around and like, go here, go there, do this, do that. And it was, I still have a lot of trauma that I'm working through with that situation. I will absolutely admit that. It was scary. There was so much going on.
I read your blog that you were saying that the doctors, when they were giving you that bad news, like you basically weren't even allowed to kind of make your own decisions. You were just like, yeah, like nodding your head. And I read that just you were feeling so numb, and how that's something for all of us to take with us, is to not agree to like everything that the doctors right away like advise you to.
Yes, that is one of the things that I always tell my students, is like, take a step back, breathe, and like, don't agree to anything. It's like, unless it's like a real emergency, of course. Right. It's not. Yeah, it was very much, my husband and the doctors are like, well, we can get you in tomorrow. Like, let's do this. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Okay. Like, okay. And then it all just happened so quickly. But yeah, taking time for sure to step back and say, what's the best option for me and myself? What do I need? What do I need more time in this situation to come to terms with it before being rushed into the medical realm and all that? So
how long before you tried again for your next IUI was that?
I took a few months, absolutely took a few months, because it was devastating as it is. And I needed some space between, and we'll try again next month. I'm like, no, we're not. Like, I'm not ready to do that again, because then once, when there's a pregnancy loss, there's getting pregnant again is a whole other ball game.
Oh yeah.
Always the thought of, will I get through this
Mhm.
one? Will the same thing happen? I don't want to celebrate. I don't want to connect until I know for sure.
Mhm.
And then the 12-week goes by. Oh no, I want to wait for 16 weeks and then the 21 weeks. And right, there's a lot of,
Mhm.
I don't know, protection. We're
Right.
protecting ourselves, right? Um,
So in
yes.
your story, I know you went through 3 more IUIs. Is that correct? 3 more IUIs?
Yeah, we did 4 in
Yeah.
total,
Mhm.
IUI. And then they moved us. I mean, everything just kind of snowballs, right? They're like, okay, let's do IVF. Let's just do it.
Mhm.
I'm like, just okay, sure. I had never wanted to do IVF. I thought, well, it seems like a lot of mental, emotional, financial stress.
Oh yeah.
Germany, it's one round costs about out of pocket like $1,000. So, right?
Wow.
It's like, well, okay, let's give it a go, right? Like, why not? Like
Mhm.
it's cheap, not thinking about all the other things going.
$1,000. Could you imagine? Oh gosh, that's
I
amazing.
can because I did.
I
I
mean,
know.
people who are listening are like, compared to the 20 typical, for around here,
Mhm.
like 20 grand.
Well, I know we're like coming back and yeah, listening to the stories and the financial stress being such
Yeah.
another added layer of
Oh,
stress to
completely.
the
Yeah.
process that I didn't experience. Um,
Yeah.
I experienced other levels of stress, maybe the
Mhm.
language and so
Learning
on.
language. Mhm. But
Um,
they advised you for a fresh transfer, right? For the first one?
yeah, so the first we did a fresh transfer and that was crazy, I'll admit, like going off of stems, retrieval, fresh, um, believed to be a chemical pregnancy or what they're calling them these days.
Mm.
And, my period was like a week and a half late and it was over Christmas. So I couldn't really go and get tested. So I was like, kind of like, oh, woo. And then on New Year's, all right, I got my period on New Year's. So I was like,
Oh
ooh,
my
happy New
Happy
Year
New
to
Year.
you.
Oh my gosh. Ah,
Yeah.
the holidays and experiencing this is so hard.
Yeah. We were living in Europe, so we didn't have a lot of family around. So we actually
Mhm.
went to Portugal to visit a friend and we were just staying in this little house on the coast and just kind
Mhm.
of passing time and waiting basically as we do in the
Lots of
IVF world. So
yeah.
much waiting. Yeah, so it was, yeah, and then we went in, we froze a couple from that round. We did a frozen embryo transfer. We did another, which was unsuccessful. We did
Mm.
another couple rounds of egg retrievals, another frozen,
Wow.
all like it did IVF did not work for us.
Mhm.
And we found it to be very, I'm not saying it wouldn't have worked if we kept going at it, but
Mhm.
it was really disruptive in our lives. And
Mhm.
I really got to the point after years of it, just saying, you know what? I think we can have a really good life without kids.
Mhm.
And that I think was the turning point. People often ask, well, how do you know? Like, how do you know when you're done? Right? That you probably get that question a lot
Yeah.
too.
Mhm. Mhm. And
Um,
so it was that moment when you're just like, I surrender, I'm letting go of this.
right. It was such a surrender. It was such a surrender. And you can't fake it, right? Because we're like, how can I like get to that point of surrender? I'm like, you just have to get there on your timeline. We can't force it. Um, it can happen though, and for for us we surrendered and it really truly was, I think we can have a great life. It didn't feel like the end of the world to me not to have kids.
Mhm.
um for a while it did, like this is what I this we want to, it's a challenge and we work at it and that's how we do life in Western society, right? We push, 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 push until we have success and then we're woohoo, we got it. But when you do everything you can do and you don't have success, then you start to bring in the other pieces of like spirituality and energy and mental health and emotional health. And you're like, oh yeah, okay. These things are important. So after we said no more IVF, I got pregnant the following month.
How old were you? How old were you then?
I was 47 or 37, sorry.
Oh, wait.
Like not 47, 37.
37. Okay.
37 when I got pregnant. So my son was born the day after my 38th birthday.
Wow. Nice.
So we almost had the same birthday.
Oh, that's cool.
And then he was a difficult baby. Loved to death, but that's another thing to talk about, right? Like,
yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Postpartum after IVF, and like, right, it's
Mm-hmm.
not all postcards and like playing at the beach, right? It's
Right.
crazy. And yeah, my husband and I were like, "Phew, like we can never do this again. Like our marriage won't survive, our like mental health won't survive." And then randomly, maybe after having sex once or twice, so 9 months postpartum, I was pregnant again.
Mm.
And then had another little boy. So I have two boys. They're now 9 and 10, almost 11.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your story. It's so powerful. I mean, you've gone through it all, right? IUI, IVF, you've gone through loss and all of these, I think this is such an important conversation to talk about. Like, why aren't holistic supports? They're not introduced sooner. It's not something probably your doctor talked about. You were always into yoga, it sounds like, from way back when, but even, that probably wasn't emphasized. And I know you didn't start acupuncture till later on, and just I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Oh, I don't know why it's not introduced. I think it's slightly changing. I know that many of the doctors that I know and work with in Boston, you refer people to me, especially those who are sort of like experiencing overwhelming stress and really having it affect their lives. They're like, well, here, why don't, yes, go to a therapist, but this, maybe try some yoga. Here's Kerry, this is what she does. So I'm finding that a little bit more is happening.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
And I think acupuncture has become a very typical thing that people will just dive right into. They're like, because of the studies that have happened with acupuncture and how great it is. I love acupuncture. I think it's amazing for balancing hormones. And yeah, it's great. I love acupuncture.
Well, fertility yoga, let's talk about that, because that's the focus for today, all about your skill set. And just, I was looking, your website, different things, and there's like 3 key areas for yoga. It can improve your reproductive health. Fertility yoga, it can balance hormones and just increase your chances of getting pregnant. Yeah.
So they have done some studies. So there was a meta data analysis on it. They took all the studies on fertility and yoga, and there aren't that many. Like, really, it could be researched much more. So if anybody wants to do a research study, let me know. I've been trying to talk doctors into it for ages, but they're like, well, it's so much work, hard to control. But so they reviewed 86 studies. And of those 86, 84 had statistically significant increase for improved results for IVF, IUI, and at sort of trying at home. Not every single study was all of those things, but it was consistent. The thing is, yoga is so hard to study because yoga is such a big word and it means so many things to so many different people. And what we imagine yoga in our Western society is very fitness oriented, right? Like hot power yoga, let's go, let's sweat out stress. And you feel better afterwards because of the endorphins and so on. But it's also very depleting. It's so depleting to our systems. When we're coming from a a true yogic space or place,
Mhm.
we really want, especially in fertility, we don't want to deplete, we want to nurture. So having a slower practice, one that's more internally focused,
Yeah.
and specifically focused on, working in and around the pelvis and bringing blood flow and energetic flow in and around the pelvis and other areas of the body that are important for fertility, we can really reach our reproductive health on multiple layers and kind of avoid this fitness yoga, hit
Mhm.
yoga,
Yeah.
or vinyasa, gymnastic yoga, and so on.
Right.
That's don't get me on my soapbox, but I'll go on and on about that one.
No acro yoga, right?
No acro yoga. I mean, the thing is, like, there's been no major studies to say like hot yoga is bad for fertility or anything like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
because Western science will research what it wants to research.
Mhm.
And yeah, but just because Western science hasn't studied it doesn't mean it's not a valid
Yeah.
route of support for fertility. It's starting to get studied more often. Yeah, which
And
is great.
something, yeah, thanks for bringing up just how gentle this is really important for us to understand. And you get this as a practitioner where you help women kind of know where they're at in their menstrual cycle and how you can tailor certain classes and poses, modify them for women at different stages of their cycle.
Yes,
It's really important for us to kind of get that. I think, you know,
totally. I mean, I think yeah, when we stop and we think about it, be like, oh my gosh, yes, this makes so much sense, right? But because, and here I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit,
go for it.
because we live in such a masculine, I'm not talking like gender, but just this
Yeah.
masculine energy,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Go,
Mhm.
go, go, the push, 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 the do more, sun,
Mhm.
heat, right?
Mhm.
And men live on a 24-hour cycle. They don't live on a 28-day cycle like we do
Yeah.
as the menstruating people,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
we work differently, but yet we're forced, we're the, what is it, square peg, round hole, or whatever.
Right.
Like, we're being forced
Uh-huh.
into a different cycle that our natural flow is totally different from,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we take a step back and be like, oh, wow, okay, so let's think about our cycle and like think of the energies that we have. And when people start dealing with fertility and fertility issues, the one first thing they start doing is looking at their cycles, right? But
Mhm.
mostly looking at like, when am I ovulating? Right? So I can have sex and I can get pregnant and so on.
Mhm.
And instead, like, can we also look at how do you feel? Where do you have the most energy? How would your time be most best spent? Like, for
Mhm.
me, I know that when I'm ovulating, it's like I'm the queen bee, like I'm the flower, the bees are coming to me, right? Like, people call me like, hey Carrie, let's do this. Like, let's collab. Like, it's really crazy.
Yeah.
In the 2-week wait, that's when I do all my writing, because things start to slow down right in the luteal phase. So if we think about how we can incorporate our yoga practice, um, you've probably heard the reference to the different seasons.
Yes. I'm so glad you're bringing that up. You're guiding. I was going right there next.
Okay, so when we think of menstruation, it's our inner winter. So when we think about what happens in winter, we kind of retreat, we get cozy, we slow down, we relax. The days are long or short. There's lots of darkness, and I
Mhm.
think of like the hibernating bear. That's me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
when I'm menstruating.
Hibernation. Think of that. Yeah. The winter, cozy, right? In retreating, going inward.
Yeah. And it's also, right, when we think of winter, it's like things go dormant
Mm.
so that when spring comes, there's energy and
Yeah.
power. So our cycle is the same way with when we menstruate. Yes, we're shedding, and we're in yoga, we say it's aponic, it's the downward outward flow of energy.
Mm.
um, and it gives us the ability to spring into our next part of the cycle, which we call
Mhm.
inner spring, which is the follicular phase, which is technically including menstruation, but often we think of it as sort of post menstruation up to ovulation. So
Mhm.
that's spring. What happens in spring? Woo, it's party time, right? Flowers are coming out, birds are coming out, everybody's coming out. It's tons of energy. The days are getting longer. So this is when we have like all this energy. And this is a great time in our yoga practice to, like, if you have to do your vinyasa, power yoga or whatever, this is the time to do it. Right. So
Mhm.
having like twisting and things like this is fine during this time. Right. A lot of people say, oh, I'm never going to twist when I'm trying to have a baby. No, it's okay to twist when you're preparing your uterine lining and getting energy and blood flow into that reproductive organs. That's important. So spring, follicular phase,
Okay.
amazing time for this. And then inner summer is our
Ovulation.
ovulation, right? So
Mhm.
what are the energies of summer? For me, it's like it's hotter, so I like slow down a little bit. I sit in my hammock, sit on the beach and just,
Mhm.
it's a little bit more chill than
Okay.
spring, but it's still energetic. And our practice can also sort of follow that. You can, do the things, you can do the twists, do the inversions, and so on.
And
Just
we're not
not,
talking fertility treatments right now. We're just talking our general cycles.
yeah, just general cycles. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Just to
stimming and,
clarify for anybody that's like, what?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because
Yeah.
there's some things we want to change,
Mhm.
but it does follow a similar, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Similar energies as we go
Yeah.
through.
Okay.
And then the luteal phase is inner fall, and we think about fall, like days are
Yeah.
getting longer, things are starting to slow down. You're like, ooh, let's pull out that sweater, let's get a little cozy, the crock
Yeah.
pot, the knitting needles, I don't know. That's there
Yes.
too. Let's go leaf peeping, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
Grounding. Yeah.
feeling like it's
Grounding.
earthy and grounding,
Hmm.
and that's when that 2-week wait is also. So we just slow down.
Yeah.
We don't twist anymore. We don't do crazy things.
Yeah.
Spring
Let's
is
talk about
over.
that. The things we would not, so we can jump into 2-week wait for those who may be in that waiting
Okay.
period. Like the poses you would not do or positions during that inner autumn, the luteal phase, 2-week wait, no twisting is one I know you've said.
Yeah. So I also want to make it clear they've never studied any of this, right? Like Western science of like, if I twist, will that cause harm?
Mm,
I truly believe that if you were to do like some twisting, you're not going to cause harm to the baby. But what we want to do is, just always err on the side of caution. We still want to be
mhm,
supportive and nurturing to where we are in the cycle and
mhm.
avoid things that physically we don't know for sure, but mentally
Right.
and emotionally, right? You're kind
Okay.
of like, well, I don't want to twist. I might
Yeah.
be pregnant. Fine. We just don't do it.
Yeah.
Because I know lots of people who twist and get pregnant, right? So
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
like we can't make a blanket statement, but when
Yeah.
I'm teaching, I do avoid deep closed twists.
Hmm.
So things that would look like, if you do yoga, um, let's say like a
Like this.
revolved triangle. So close would be like you're kind of leaning in on yourself and then twisting so that you're
Hmm.
putting tons of pressure on the pelvic area, which is great during follicular, but not great in the 2-week wait. I
Okay.
always think of it as pressure. Like, do
Hmm.
you want
Hmm.
pressure or do you not want pressure on the
Right.
pelvic area? So
So,
twists can
mhm.
add a lot of pressure, but open twists don't. So I can twist my upper body, I can swivel my rib cage around. That's fine. It's just if I'm leaning forward and twisting or anything
Okay.
like
Okay.
that.
Okay, more of a closed twist. And also
Yeah.
like I've read in your I think it was a blog maybe I read in the past, but being prone on your belly and putting pressure on your belly. If you're in that 2-week wait, probably not a great thing to do.
Yeah. So I often use for in my classes a belly bolster. So you lie on your stomach, you put a bolster right underneath your pubic bone, basically. So you kind of have a little lift, which is an amazing pose for the follicular phase, but we skip it in the 2-week wait. Would it cause a miscarriage or some? Probably not, but mentally, emotionally, we want to be like, I'm safe, I'm protecting, like we're in that sort of mothering phase, right?
Right.
So I always say, like, if I lead you down a path for a pose and you don't want to do it because you think you just don't want to do it, don't do it. It's not worth it, right? It's not worth the mental, emotional anguish of like, should I be doing this pose? Should I not be doing this pose? She said I could. Did she say I could? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. Right. And then if you don't know, don't do it.
Listen to your body, listen to your gut. Yeah, I know anything like you said, the constriction. So the fold, like a folding forward, or even I think back bends you said, right? Or something you wouldn't do in the 2-week wait.
Yeah. So forward folding. So if we think again of constriction or pressure, if our legs are together, and of course, this also really depends on your body type. So I live in a larger body, so I know the pressure that I feel is very different than from those that live in a slimmer body. So I always remind people, like, what does it feel like for you? And then if you feel the pressure or it's too constricting for forward folds, you open the knees up. So child's pose for many doesn't add a lot of pressure onto the lower abdominal area, whereas for me it does. So I open my knees up and I make space. So forward folds, again, it's all about that. Am I putting pressure on? Am I putting pressure on? And then when we do back bending, so a little like gentle back bend from the chest lifting, fine. But if you're going to be going into, like a bow pose or some sort of like crazy bridge or anything or like a deep camel pose, if you're familiar with that, but anything that's adding a ton of pressure forwards. Again, would it necessarily be harmful? Probably not, but energetically, it's the opposite direction of where we want to go.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about the energy, the prana, right? Just we're moving this energy, opening the pathways in our body. And I'd love to talk about the stim phase because we just covered the 2-week wait. So for those who are, preparing for an egg retrieval, maybe going through stims, what would be kind of your top tips for that?
Okay, so
maybe not to do or what to do.
So mostly with stims, I would say a stim cycle is the cycle that my eyeballs open the most. And I say, okay, we need to really, really modify and take care, because as you know, many people listening know, when we are doing stims, it is incredibly uncomfortable. There can be some don't find it so, but the majority of people do. As our follicles are growing, our ovaries explode like quadruple or 10 times as large as they are normally doing. So there's bloating, there's pressure, there's hormonal changes with the hormones, and then the sites that you're doing your injections, like there's a lot going on with our body. So what I tell my people is restorative yoga is the way to go when you're stimming for regular responders and high responders. For low responders, some movement would be indicated, right? So for those that have a low responding for stim, like, oh, I only have like a couple follicles growing. Okay, things aren't as enlarged, but we do want energy going in there to sort of help with the stims to awaken things.
Would you say more vinyasa flow then, kind of at that point, if somebody's trying to stimulate and trying to get more, grow their follicles, like the gentle flow
for low responders?
For a low responder.
I would say gentle. I wouldn't go into vinyasa class ever. Stimming.
Okay.
No, and we
Very
can talk about that
Very
too.
gentle. Okay, very gentle movement. Got it.
Yeah, gentle, slow flow would be okay. But again, we need to take into consideration we're not going to do any twists
Mhm.
at all. We're absolutely not going to do any full inversions. So headstand, shoulder stand,
Yeah.
legs up the wall with elevated hips, anything like that, because we're worried about ovarian torsion.
Mhm.
So your ovaries flip and then we can lose fallopian tubes and things like
Oh
that.
my goodness. I don't think about those things.
Right? Yeah. Especially those who may have hyperstimulation.
Mm.
What is it?
OHHS, ovarian hyperstimulation
Stimulation
syndrome.
syndrome. Yeah.
So no shoulder stand, no headstand or handstands, even legs up the wall, any of that during a stim phase.
Legs up the wall with the hips in line with the heart is fine.
Okay.
As soon as
Okay.
we get the hips higher than the heart.
Gotcha.
So even some like downward dog is an inversion.
Mhm.
The pelvis is above the heart. However, it's not a full inversion, so the legs aren't up all the way. When people are stimming in my classes, I mean, we do some downward dogs, but we don't hang out in downward dog for a really long time. It's more of a
Okay.
transitional pose.
Okay.
But I would avoid long holds in downward dog too. Again, this is a mostly mental and emotional, but we want to be extra, extra, extra careful,
Right.
especially with stim cycles. So no pressure on the belly, doesn't feel good,
Mhm.
right? If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. So yeah, those deep twists or coming down into cobra and back bending, those sorts of things we're going to skip. So it's like the luteal 2-week wait the whole time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about hot yoga? Like any times during an IVF cycle, would hot yoga be okay? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if we want to, depends on which direction we come to that, right? So we're coming from like a Western science direction. If you have to do your hot power vinyasa, you'll do it in the follicular phase, post ovulation, pre or post menstruation, pre ovulation. If you have to, because I have this conversation a lot with.
Yeah.
I love my hot yoga. It's like my
Right.
therapy. It's where I go. I feel so good. It's my
Mhm.
exercise. And I get that because I was like that too. And
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know how good it feels after a crazy yoga
Mhm.
class, which is your endorphins, right? But again,
Mhm.
it's so depleting. So depleting. In yoga, we have soma. It's called soma. It is the nectar of our being. It is what we want to cultivate
I love that.
when we are, especially when we're trying to get pregnant and have successful pregnancies. We want to nurture the soma, right? It's the thing,
Mhm.
it is the nectar. And
Mhm.
it's feminine. That's the
Yeah.
other thing. Soma is feminine. It is the moon. It is slowing down. It's the waves of water, right? And when we're just
Yeah.
always going to hot yoga or power yoga, we don't cultivate soma. We deplete our soma.
Mm.
So we
Beautiful.
want to move into the styles of yoga, the softer sides of yoga, that
Mhm.
build support and nurture. And not just our reproductive health, but overall vitality, overall life.
I love that so much. You're speaking my language.
I know.
Shifting to a softer way of being, right?
Yes.
That
And
word nurture, nurturing ourselves.
nurture, nurture, nurture.
Mm.
We're so hard on ourselves.
Mhm.
We the way we talk to ourselves, that's
Yeah.
you could do better, like do more, do this, do that, do this, do that.
Yeah.
It's it's too much.
I love what you're bringing into the space. It's so needed.
I I really feel it is too.
Yeah.
I think, and what I love about the yoga is that it's like all of these things in one practice. Like we
Mhm.
don't have to divide it out. We don't, I mean, yes, having a good therapist is important, but the way I teach, always teaching themes. So like, let's talk about karma. Let's talk about like soma. Let's talk about, I mean, hope and trust and like all these things that come up in the fertility journey. We take those themes and then we embody them in our movement, which is just a different avenue, rather than like the cerebral all the time. Like, let our bodies feel it. Like, what does it feel like for our bodies to have choice, right? To like, do I want to be here or do I not want to be here? Right? Listen, does your body saying yes? Is your body saying no? I think we got off topic. What was I trying?
That's okay. It's okay. Well, no, I love
yoga. We're talking
We're talking
about
about so much. Well, no, one final thought I was just going to bring up. So the areas to kind of avoid, we talked about, you know, the intensity, and sometimes, you know, people want to hold a pose for a really long time or go deeper. Like, you don't really want to do that so much as when you're on your fertility path, like going through IVF treatments. It's like, just the softening of it, maybe not so intense. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Intense.
That's one area. And then the avoiding the core work. I was just doing some research about this too. Like the core, it's like we want to be mindful of it, but maybe not emphasize strengthening that core, because it's the opposite of what we're going for, right? Like that softening.
Absolutely. Did you just read the blog post that I posted then? I just posted that blog post about the core and the intensity, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no. Those 3 areas, kind of talking about things to avoid as we're going through this.
Yeah, I just posted that one. So yeah, the core work, it's a hard one, because you go to a yoga class normally and they're like, let's do some core work. And it's really intense. It's a lot of constricting and tightening, and, you know, and when we think about our life, we may have not strong cores, but we're always sort of in this, we're seated, we're in the car, we're at the desk and so on. So we're really always constricting and tight in and around anyway. So if we start adding more tension, right, we need to be open, we need to be receptive.
Exactly.
And when we talk, I know you do some work with energy centers.
Oh yeah, very much.
And I talk about this in my class too, but the root chakra, like the chakras, root, and the pelvic chakra, like okay, so much going on in my head.
I feel like we have a workshop. Well, we'll do a workshop together on this.
Yes, we should do a chakra one.
I mean, I'm all about chakras and energy centers, so this is right up my alley.
Yeah. So when we think like the root chakra, this is our safety, but this is also the home of our fear. So until we overcome truly what is blocking us and in the fear, and people, I'm not scared. I want this so badly. How can I be scared? It's like, it's okay to be scared, right? We have a fear of fear, right, in our society, but it's okay to be scared. Like when I actually sat down and thought about the things that I was scared about becoming a parent or for pregnancy, you know, it can be so many, like, do I have enough time? Do I have enough money? Do I have enough love? Do I have enough energy? You know, for me, you know, breast cancer runs in my family. So I'm like, am I passing on genes that are harmful to my future children? Like there are all these things lying underneath the fear, right?
Yeah.
And then when we come to terms with that and be like, okay, it's like, then the root softens. And we can be like, that is the entryway. I call it the gateway to the womb. Like the root chakra is we gotta start there.
Yeah.
And
feel grounded and safe. Yeah, exactly.
Grounded, safe, secure. And then we move up into the sacral chakra. I mean, this is, you know, is the home of our reproductive organs.
Yeah.
It's watery, it's fluid, it's soft, like it needs to be open, but we concentrate so much in our society of like closing, getting stronger, getting stronger, getting stronger. Our pelvic floors are so tight.
Oh yeah.
Our psoases are so tight. And like, we're like, let's open that up. Let's make space, because space is where the magic happens.
Yes. You know it.
Right?
Yeah.
We need the space. Everything is best with
Mhm.
space. So
I love that you focus on that too. It's so important. And you have
yeah.
just an amazing, like an array of resources on your website. Tell everybody where they can find you at.
www.fertilebodyyoga
Mhm.
is the main site. There's lots on there. There's free, I don't
Yeah,
know, there's free classes, free meditations. I do a lot of meditation and
yeah,
visualization work as well.
love it.
Mm, just lots of
Oh my
things,
gosh.
blog posts, and how to come to a class if you want to come to a class. I have a lot of on-demand products with people
Hmm.
really like. So
Hmm.
if you're preparing for a frozen embryo transfer, it's a program just for that.
I love it. Yeah.
So it's
Well,
very
such an
specific.
honor to be in this space with you and share all these wonderful resources. And
Yeah, you too. I'm glad we connected.
I know. Oh my gosh. Thank you for all the work you do. You're impacting a lot of lives.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Thanks, girl.
That lovely support your and yeah, I think I think we just need to keep doing this.
Yeah. Thanks, Kerry. We'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
Bye.
Thank you.